So I think there's a lot of misconception about the female body, and maybe that's not something they teach in schools, so it's not really on you, but the people who taught you in sex ed. But as an adult, it is 100% on you to educate yourself, especially if you have a wife, a sister, a mother, etc. For me, I talk openly about my period and women's health in general because maybe somebody will learn something, and maybe women won't have to feel so ashamed of their bodies. So for me, I have a thing called PCOS, or polycystic ovary syndrome. I'm sometimes on my menstrual cycle for months at a time, and sometimes I'm not on it at all for months, and sometimes it's regular. Birth control is very expensive and hard to get. So for me, places like Planned Parenthood that help with the cost or give people free birth control help keep me regular every month. And they are constantly trying to shut down places that help people like me. Anyway, with PCOS, I have a lot of pain, and I would desperately like to just adopt and to have them yank my ovaries out. But I can't until I'm a certain age, or I have a husband, or both. We don't get to make the decisions for our own bodies and our own rights, so I get to be in constant pain, which is so fantastic.
Clitoris, urethra, vulva, labia majus, labia minora, vagina, cervix, uterus, fallopian tube, ovary. Coitus, traditional penis-vagina penetration. A clitoris, the bean-like tissue in front of the external genitalia, also known as the tip of the iceberg, because it extends deep into the body around the vestibular bulbs. This is where you gently touch to engage in pleasure. Don't be aggressive, it's sensitive. Urethra, the small orifice behind the external clitoris and in front of the vulva and vaginal opening. This is where one goes number one. Vulva, the area of fatty tissues around the clitoris, urethra, and labia. Labia, the two folds around the vaginal opening. Vagina, the internal tube where, traditionally, penis gets stimulated during intercourse. More recently, the focus has turned into stimulating the vagina for feminine pleasure. Remember, sometimes coitus is not the only way a female reaches orgasm, and that it is not like male orgasms. Cervix, a small opening at the top of the vagina and below the uterus. Uterus, the internal sac that, in most cases, gets coated with endometrium and blood tissue to make a suitable environment for a fertilized egg. Fallopian tube and ovaries. The tubes connect the ovaries where an egg is produced and released. The ovaries release one and sometimes more eggs approximately every 28 days. This egg only lives for about 24 to 48 hours, meaning that the fertilization period is within those few hours, meaning that the female body already has a lot of control over the production of an egg and a prime period for success. Ovulation. The 24 to 48 hours it takes for the egg to be released from the ovary. Menstruation. Approximately 12 days after ovulation, where the 80 milliliters of endometrium and blood tissue is shed and crammed through the cervix, which is less than half-inch wide. It crawls out through the cervix and down the vaginal opening, not to be confused with the urethra, which is where one urinates from. The blood cannot be held in, because the vaginal opening is not a muscle that can simply be clenched closed. And you're so fucking horny, but you can't have sex because your partner is grossed out, but you need it. Menarche, the first period of a female, usually at age 12 to 14. Menopause, the last few years of menstruation life cycle. Approximately at 50 onward. This means women bleed for 40 years, 12 times per year, for 6 to 9 days. That's a total of 2,880 bleeding days. That's 38,400 milliliters of blood in a lifetime. Yeah, I'm on my period.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg said it best. The decision whether or not to bear a child is central to a woman's life, to her well-being and dignity. It is a decision she must make for herself. When government controls that decision for her, she is being treated less than a fully human adult, responsible for her choices. When anyone other than the woman herself steps in and makes the decision for her, it says she's not capable enough, smart enough, or man enough to choose. That's right, man enough. In this manly and bravado, testosterone, penis-driven society, she does not have the balls to make the decision. But he can, because he knows, right? He's gotta know. Every man knows how the female body works because every man knows how the female genitalia works. Because every man knows what it's like to carry a baby, because every man knows what it's like to physically deliver a baby. He knows, right? He's got to know. He knows, considering he's at the head of every discussion and decision-making process. There's a chair just for him. When you listen, you can hear his opinion, his thoughts, his concerns, his desires. So of course, she couldn't make the choice, but he could. And he can, and he will, and he has. And her, well, she obviously doesn't matter because she doesn't know, right? She fails to know. There is no room at the conference table for her, no room for her discussion, no possibility for decision-making. Her voice is censored, silenced, are her opinions, thoughts, concerns, and desires, since she doesn't know. Right? She fails to know. Maybe she knows what it's like to carry a baby. Maybe even knows what it's like to deliver a baby. But all that doesn't concern him. To him, and through him, she is something less than a human being. In fact, he knows she couldn't. She isn't. She wasn't. And she can't.